Hyperguyver 2 says, gotta give the Titanic credit. It managed to successfully maintain its flawless kill streak by disconnecting its its controller. Ouch. Too soon.
Oh yeah, too soon.
Yeah.
But it is worth discussing, though, because it is a topic that has dominated the news cycle all week, when there really was no need for it to dominate beyond Sunday. But hey,
I'm sure it was
there was. There's a certain threat made to a Chinese investor to pay them and their dad.
Well, I was going to say there was other news going on, Hunter, that they needed to cover up for too.
Exactly. That's kind of like what I'm thinking, because yeah, for those that have been under a rock, the legacy of the Titanic, and this is legacy that truly reverberates through history. I mean, if there was something that was like written in the star, like a canon event that's true across the multiverse, it has to be the sinking of the Titanic. I mean, you even had a book writing about the sinking of the Titanic years before it actually happened. Only in the book, it wasn't called the Titanic, it was called the Titan. Ironically, the same thing as the Submersible that went down with 5 people, including the CEO of the company, last Sunday for like an adventurous little trip down to the wreckage of the Titanic. And this was a truly remarkable, I think we can say that, little submersible made for 5 people, not for 5 people to be comfortable in, but for 5 people to be crammed into. And it was controlled by a third-party PlayStation controller.
It was all digital. There's no manual controls.
Very confident.
No analog stuff. Yeah.
Or no GPS tracking or anything like that.
Well, they used Starlink. Like they used all off-the-counter tracking technology that they could. Over-the-counter tracking technology that they could. They had been on a number of voyages, many of them successful, some of them with some incidences that had to have been addressed, which we'll probably get more details of that later. But there was a lot of questionable practices going on.
Yeah. Well,
absolutely.
I think we've hit rock bottom with all the jokes, though.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. That was too much.
Wow. That's
But yeah, and also it's worth noting that the CEO of the company, he felt it was very important to be inspirational, meaning he didn't want any 50-year-old experienced dudes with, like actual submarine experience, because they weren't inspirational.
That's the bigger problem.
It was far better with various diversity hires.
Well, no, that has to do more with him, because he was one of the youngest fighter pilots ever. He was 19, flying stuff that most people had to take 8 to 10 years to learn how to do. He wanted more people like him when he was younger involved. He used the diversity angle to also justify that socially, but this is a young man who was kind of a savant with a lot of things and made a great fortune. You could kind of compare him that if he wasn't allegedly cutting quarters, he would have been like the dad of International Rescue, like Dad Tracy to the Thunderbirds, essentially, because that's kind of what he was trying to become. It looks like when you take a look at his history.
Cameron just killed him in an ABC interview. He actually never really spoke to him, but he did talk about how the methods that he was using were not sustainable for repeated exploration of the ocean floor. And Cameron went down, according to him, 30 times.
Yeah.
And obviously back.
And he was the first more time there than the captain of the actual Titanic. But yes, carry on, Tom.
No, I was just going to say, and he even said that, he was talking about how it's like, if the way it probably happened, it was instantaneous. And he said he knew it right away, too.
Yeah.
So, and that was the thing with, the tracking and the communication things. That's what a lot of people were asking from the start. It was like, if you lost contact with them right away and you can't find them, then chances are they aren't there anymore, right? Like, something happened, they're gone.
Well, ocean deep ocean diving is more treacherous than going into space.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what, Cameron was saying too, it was like, it's a very dangerous game to be playing.
Yeah. And no backup device, remote backup device that can dive down and ferret things out or something. There's just so many things wrong with this.
Yeah. This is the point that Cameron
you can think that they would even have like a drone James Cameron. Sorry, James Cameron. Sorry,
yeah.
But you would think they would have like a drone, Andre, or something that follows them. Yeah, sorry.
Well, there's currently to this day is no technology that can, no type of probe that could go down and pull something that has sunk up from that depth.
Well, I'm not even talking
water pressure.
I'm not even talking about that so much. It's just like a little camera-driven drone that follows along just to make sure that everything's going kosher, even if it's a delayed send back.
And this is the point that James Cameron was making too. For all their dives down to the Titanic, they never went alone. It was always 2 submersibles, just in case one would suddenly get itself tangled into something.
Right.
The other one would be there to be able to help out in the way that was possible. Whereas this thing here went in completely unsupported. So yeah, like this is obviously like a high risk endeavor, and the dude, he, like the CEO, to be fair, he was very upfront about the risk. I mean, there's even video of him telling anyone wanting to go that by agreeing to this, you risk all kinds of emotional trauma, physical injury, and even death.
Yep.
Who do I sign?
There's waivers.
He was very upfront about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sure this is going to be one of those messy situations where, it's going to come down to that where, like, you can't really sue him because you sign away all these waivers.
He was very upfront about it, and I honestly have to say that because Legal Mindset, he did a great video on this and where they are liable and how there may be regulation. What I will say about that. I hope there will be no regulation about this. Some things you just can't regulate. You know what this is to me? This is the exact same thing as base jumping and parachuting and these kinds of extreme sports. Whenever you do extreme sports, you take a risk. You take it knowing and willingly. And if you were to institute new regulations every time a parachuter died or a base jumper died, I mean, spoilers, that happens all the freaking time. And we don't change things for that. So I would have hoped that they won't do it here either. Just like see it what it was. Here you had some people with way too much money and way too big a fascination with the Titanic that decided that seeing the pictures ain't good enough. We have to physically be there, and they were willing to pay the price for it. And they knew full well that going into this one custom-made death machine, if anything went wrong, they'd be dead before they knew what hit them. Which, incidentally, is exactly what happened. I mean, the risk was there. Yeah.
I could probably describe exactly the horrors.
Yeah, I think everybody's probably seen the videos.
The heat that would have occurred due to the pressure. Unfortunately, there would most likely be no remains to.
That's what everybody's been saying, and Cameron was saying too. Is like James Cameron was saying as well. It's like once the implosion happened, they had no idea. It was pretty instantaneous. Luckily for them, nobody probably suffered at all. And like he was saying, is like there is no remains to be found, and so did some of the other specialists say the same things. And this is what I was going to compare it to. Dragon Bricks is right here. It's no different than the risk you take climbing Mount Everest or
exactly.
Other things. Exactly. Yeah.
And same thing with also if you die on Mount Everest, people that do climb Mount Everest, you'll see dead bodies all around.
Yeah, I've seen some of the videos of some of the people who don't realize that shit, and it's like, what do you think they do with the bodies, lady? It's like, you think they're going to go up there and retrieve them?
All I can say is try getting demonetized on YouTube if you want horror.
Yeah, that's a very different brand of horror.
Oh,
and you'll be alive to feel that.
Yeah, you think that's metaphysically no.
Yeah.
But let's move on from that.
Yeah,
it was pretty crazy.
Yeah,
Success.
I would like 6 if you're still there. What's your thoughts on the continued legacy of the Titanic now in the Titan?
I think that some of the jokes and the memes were a little bit in poor taste. I'm sure that the family members have seen some of those, and I feel badly for them. I particularly feel badly for the 19-year-old boy. I read an article that his aunt had said that he was very nervous about going on the trip, and he was only going to please his father because it was on Father's Day weekend. And so I hope that they didn't suffer.
You know who I feel the worst for there? The mother who lost both her husband and her son in one go. That's the one individual I feel the worst for.
Yeah, normally I'm not somebody who would poke any type of fun at death at all, but like the other side of this, outside of the family thing, is I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, you're sick or twisted or whatever if you're going to do a joke about this, because like we've been just saying for the last 10 minutes too, you take a risk doing this. Outside of that kid who, if it's true, he didn't really necessarily want to go on this, these people were paying a lot of money to do this thing. Yeah, it's not like they're doing it out of, it's not like it was, you didn't know the risk going into it is kind of what I'm getting.
They were informed fully well that you are stepping into a potential death machine that's controlled by a freaking Logitech controller.
Yeah, I'm not taking shots at anyone who's been making the jokes. I didn't mean it like that.
No, I didn't think you were either. But yeah,
I think that some of the jokes would have been a little bit different had these people not been rich.
Well, this is that's exactly right. And there's an awful lot of people who've been making disparaging remarks purely because they were rich. And the idea that you can't be human and rich at the same time,
right,
is a ridiculous
and that's
notion.
Not where I'm coming from either. My point is like, it's, you do stupid things, you win stupid prizes sometimes. I hate saying it like that, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. It don't matter who you are, right? I'm not going to step in something like that. Like, no way. And again, I can't blame anybody for doing it, but at the same time, if it happens, it happens. It's not like it was a rescue mission or something like that. It's not like this was a military,
Cameron
or something like
Cameron said that in the history of diving in a submersible, not a single registered vehicle has ever had a bad incident or a life-threatening incident.
No, and that's
There's
true.
Been no loss of life.
Rigorous testing, except for this particular one, that everyone,
which did not,
in the very, very small community, because this is a small community of like Titanic enthusiasts and stuff. The ones
that's what Cameron was saying.
Yeah, and in this community of 15 people, they were all freaked out about the Titan in particular, because all the other stuff were like professional things, like stuff that actually work. You get up again, because they cost millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to make, and they go through such rigorous testing, and they have everything. Like, those things are feats of engineering, whereas this was something that was basically stitched together and cobbled together with spare parts in this dude's garden.
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, it just goes down to the one thing with regards to any type of contractors. Most people who are looking for these things to be constructed, they go to the lowest bidder that can get the job done, and that's an attitude that has to change in some regards. Because again, when it comes to people's lives and safety, like, this is the hard lesson that NASA learned back in the early days when they were working with some of the contractors. They went to the lowest bidder. They found that there are certain design flaws and quality issues, and they had to realize, well, maybe we can't just always go with the lowest bidder. And then that caused a whole wave of issues with regards to how much money is NASA getting, and maybe cutting the space program budget down. And it was nuts. And it was something that kept on getting cycled through with each generation. And that's why NASA doesn't do a whole lot of space exploration, extraorbital exploration. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead,
Andre. Was it you who said on Mr. H yesterday that in reference to how the owner of the company, he didn't want 50-year-old white men running the thing, or he didn't want to go to them, and somebody had said,
I clarified that
earlier. Yeah,
the guy, when he got famous at 19 for being a jet fighter pilot, and he wanted to be an astronaut, and he wanted to do all these things, and he managed to achieve a lot at a very young age. He wanted people like him to be working on this. He wanted young savant people like him. He just managed to also use that to work within the current narrative socially of saying, well, we don't need 50-year-old white men, because when he was starting out, he was 19, and the people that could fly as good as he could when he was starting out were 50-year-old white men.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what I was referring to was I thought somebody said, and I thought it was Andre said that this man went to the 50-year-old white men, and they all told him. Was that you? Okay. Yeah, I thought that was an excellent point.
And that was the next point I was going to make, that he did actually go to 50-year-old white men, and they all basically told him, I'm not stepping into that death machine.
Yeah.
So there's another thing to add to that yeah, he may be looking for people like he was when he was young. It may fit into like the current ideo-political social narrative, but more importantly, I think he actually tried to go for the experience, and the experience told him that you can't put humans into this thing.
Yeah. Well, it is a sad tragedy. There's no getting around that, and we'll see how it plays out here in the next few weeks and months. But on that note, we got a couple super chats about it. Cryam sends in 2 and says, Tom, fools and their money will depart. Yeah, I guess so. Ken and Faladero says, sorry, Andre, safety rules are written in blood. Yeah, I mean, I see a bunch of people talking about suing and stuff like that, and they may actually have a case here because of certain negligence and other things. But in most cases, you sign away those rights to sue if something happens.
Yeah. And you know, if people were to sue the company, that's not my issue. My issue is I hope that there's not going to be any kind of regulation of international waters.
Yeah.
Because that is my point here. Some things you can't regulate. Same thing with people that do extreme sports. If you want to do that and you die in the effort, then that was a risk that you made knowingly and willingly, and the rest of us, everyone else, cannot be asked to pay the price for that. Like, you can't have new rules every time a base jumper dies.
Right, no. And I think, I don't know if Andrew covered this at all, but I think a big point of this is basically, yes, you sign away certain things, but that's within reason, right? Like if in this instance, it is partially still on the owners to make sure that safety regulations are up to snuff. And that's going to be the big questions going forward the next few weeks. Were they actually doing the things that they're supposed to be doing to make sure that something like this wasn't supposed to? Could it have been prevented? That's going to be the bigger questions being asked the next few weeks, I guess. And they're probably never going to have the answers, unfortunately, because they're never going to be able to salvage enough of it to really know that. Right? But we have video out there of them manually with a hand, like doing like the nuts and bolts and stuff on the outside of this thing. It's like, why are you not using a power tool or something like that? That just seems a little lackadaisy there. Like, so there might be things like that come out of this, but at the end of the day, it's kind of a gray area. And every time even people have tried to sue when it comes to like even getting hurt on like, you know, when you go to the fair and get hurt on something, it's really difficult in some cases, unless you can prove some kind of negligence on somebody's part, basically. So that's the sad part about that truth anyway. Let's see.
I was also wondering about what's the point of no return for that trip? You know, is it once they tighten the final bolts or once they put it in the water? What if somebody says, no, I want to go back. You know, once you jump out of an airplane.
I think it's kind of the moment you descend. I think it's kind of the same thing with like an airplane. Is like once that fucker is on the tarmac, you're done for. You can't get off until they're done. Yeah. I think it's the same kind of thing here. Once it's in the water and it starts doing its, you know, because it's like it depressurizes or whatever, isn't it, Andre? And how it goes down. It's
I'm not an engineer with this, but I would
right. Yeah, that's my problem. Is I don't understand any of this shit.
But this I can say that I would say on this one, the point of no return is the moment that you are deep enough that the hull actually is at risk of
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Catastrophic implosion. I would say that is the kind of like the point of no return, because before you reach that point, then if there's some kind of leak, it's not going to be the whole thing imploding. It's going to be, oh wow, here's a crack. Water is pouring in. Yeah. We need to get the hell out of here right now.
Because it's basically by like every foot you submerge, it's that many more pounds of pressure that are being put on you. Yes.
And also, it's not like the moment that they decide to descend, there's no way to abort that. No. They can abort and go back up again every second.
Okay.
So it's a matter of at what point is it so that if something happens, you're going to face a
do you recognize the problem
rather than a leak?
Yeah,
that I would say that is the point of no return.
And I think that's what they're saying with this is they didn't have any time to really react to anything if they did.
No, because then you were past that point in the moment that, like the thing that would be a leak before you reach that point. Then you have like time to see, oh shit, here's some warnings going off. Oh, this thing is bulging. Oh, water is coming in. Abort, let's go up. The moment that happens, when you are at the depth where catastrophic implosion happens, it's not going to be a leak. It's not going to be a warning. It's going to be whatever failed to create that kind of leak failing. And the moment that happens, the implosion is instantaneous, which means that there was very little pain, because it would be like, what, like second, 2, 3 at most.
James Cameron said about 3 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. So would they had time to realize what was happening? Just like, oh shit, and over.
That's what he said. He said they probably had just enough time to hear an alarm, and that was it.
Yeah. The thing that struck me was learning that it was built from carbon fiber, because I used to dive, and one of the things that you learn is that one of the advantages of both glass and steel, especially in a spheric shape, is that the water increases the density of those two materials the deeper you go. In fact, in an ideal scenario, if you can make a perfect glass sphere, it's actually stronger than steel at great depths because of the anamorphic qualities of glass versus the crystalline quality of steel. So, and it's able to squeeze down to incredible hardness where you can shoot a bullet at it at those depths and the glass will not break.
I mean, go ahead. Sorry, Culture.
No, I was just going to add. So just for a point of conversation, if this is something that happened at 1,600 feet, which reportedly would have been about the depth they were at when they were going down on Sunday, then they would have been at about 693 pounds per square inch.
Wow.
That
and carbon fiber, carbon fiber does not work the same way as an anamorphic substrata like glass does.
No.
Or even steel. You are basing its strength on its ability to resist pressure, whereas steel and glass use the pressure to become stronger.
Well, and I'm not very science oriented, and maybe you know this, Paul, and that's why I ask. Like, you wouldn't really want to use a fiber anyway, because fibers expand and contract, right? Not only that, it's
fibers don't do that at all. Fibers shatter.
Whatever. Yeah. Okay.
That's the problem. Yeah. Go watch the latest Le Mans
can expand and contract. That's what I mean. Why they can be reinforced, but fibers can shatter.
The flexibility is really important in the material. Go watch the latest Le Mans, where they ran off the road and the shells of those carbon fiber cars just absolutely exploded. Now, obviously, those are very thin products, but I cannot conceive of, based on my past knowledge and tutelage.
Wouldn't it absorb stuff too, in a way? No. I mean, no.
No, it shatters. No, it has no
real resistance.
No flexibility.
Yeah.
That's what I was curious about. Okay.
Carbon fiber, when it goes, it's done. Like there is no midpoint to it. It
doesn't have any give to it at all.
No, none.
It's different than like cotton fibers.
Okay, that's what I was curious about, because I wasn't.
Yeah, it actually just becomes like glass particles or razor blades or whatever you want to think of it. When it shatters.
Yeah, and this is like the issue that many also had with this death machine, which is exactly what it was. It was a death machine, because Cameron and everyone else were like, you can't make something like this out of fiberglass. It just doesn't work. Like, this is the wrong kind of material.
And if they're joining different styles of material, so let's say there is some steel or some glass, how do you join it to carbon fiber? There's really no
and if you're under different kinds of pressures and temperatures and stuff like that. That's what I was thinking too, is because all right, that makes sense. Action Count says, I would not get on that submarine for one simple reason. The pressure hull was not a sphere. All serious subs use a sphere. That CEO was warned not to use a cylinder.
The Russian submersibles have are tubular, like a. Like
and where did that get them?
I mean, most submarines are extended long tubular too. Like that's the other part.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, when you're talking with like a probe, like a submersible probe, spheres are usually good. James Cameron's submersible wasn't a sphere. It was more like a giant fin.
And they were all the Russian ones. He went down mostly with the Russian ones.
Wasn't his more like a teardrop shape script?
It was hard to tell because all the shots that I've seen of it look more like a the fin of a fish, but it might have some of a curvature to it.
Yeah,
that gives it also like a teardrop shape as well. But
I thought he went down in that white Lotus submersible from James Bond.
Oh wow! Well, there you go.
Well, he went down in a number of the different ones, but he and another guy built one over like 9 years to go to the
Challenger
bottom of the Mariana Trench, which is not the Titanic one.
Yeah, the Challenger Deep Trench, and he went. Yeah.
And that is more than twice as deep as the Titanic, actually.
I was going to say
almost 3 times as deep.
Here's the one that Cameron went down, and it looks spherical from the outside on this end, but yeah, once you look on this end, it's more like you can see it. It's more like a submarine, yeah.
And here's another
safer in that one.
Titanic, yeah.
And here's another filmmaker who is loves his gear porn.
Yeah,
and I'm just trying to think of which of the Disney movie makers would be interested in this story from a technical perspective. KK would. I'm sure KK was following this religiously.
Honestly, the only one who could probably do it with any tact would be him, and it actually be correct in any way.
You know what? I'd be all for James Cameron making a movie on the Titan.
Well, and that's kind of what I've been griping about. Him wasting so much time on avatars, like all these other things he could.
Yeah, I wish he'd be done with Avatar. Get on to something else.
But it is what it is. Let's get a few more of these out of the way so we can get to the main topic of the day. Let's see here on this point. Marksman 117B says, in the words of a comedian, it's not too soon. It's perfect time to do so. The event is fresh on everyone's mind. Paul is writing jokes right now. Well, yeah. It's more so like,
Well, it depends on what's your angle with how you're making fun of this situation. Are you doing it like you're making fun of the rich because it's popular to hate the rich, or are you doing it because you're making fun of incompetence?
Right, and that's where I was coming from earlier. Like to play stupid games, win stupid prizes bit.
This is a little bit like that. Yeah, like no one wants to see anyone die over this. At the same time, when talking about avoidable deaths and potential candidates for Darwin Awards, this is like one of the key examples.
Pinochet's helicopter. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Pinochet's helicopter says U.S. Navy tasked Bob Ballard with a classified mission for locating the USS Thresher, USS Scorpion, and K-129, which led to the discovery of the Titanic. Yeah.
This is true. This is very true. It's a tremendously fascinating story behind the discovery of Titanic. I actually remember very vaguely in the news when that was found. There's like 2 news items that I remember from my childhood because they stood out that much. One was the finding of the Titanic. I didn't know what it was, but I remember it happened. And then it was Chernobyl, which was the next year.
Yeah, I remember the Titanic thing because, there was like this resurgence of Titanic historical stuff and all that stuff. Yeah. Marks 117B says, I may not be rich, but the price of $250K is too cheap, especially now that I've learned it started at $100K originally. Cheapness knows no bounds.
Apparently, they spent $1 million just in fuel to go down there. And then I wondered, what the hell kind of fuel do they use?
It was battery operated.
So even worse. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's too bad. Elusive says, with $5, thank you so much. As tasteless as some on the memes concerning the Titan are, the one of it painted as Dylan's Bud Light can is the meme of the decade. Oh, jeez.
Oh, I have to see this one. I haven't seen
that one. Yeah.
Oh, so you need to send that to Tom on Twitter or something. Yeah.
It gets worse because what's your first thought? Says, could this be considered the first DIE? Sadly, there probably is more
Well, when you take a look at the Passion Manifest, none of the people that are crewed on that really qualify for DEI.
I was gonna say there's other things you could probably put there.
It was more of an intention. Right. I mean, if you had put some diversity, like to be fair, the CEO he went down. Yeah, he went down with a chip.
Yeah.
421 Spaceman says read that one of them was a relative of one of the original Titanic victims. Very eerie, if true. If it is, yeah, but
that's true.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah,
wow. It is true. I mean, and also how shall I put this? The conspiracy theories, those things that have a tendency of becoming true, are going completely rife with some of the people on this and their political connections and stuff this, and how that echoes some of the political connections with the original.
How would we have reacted? How would we have reacted if Shatner had bought it on the Bezos trip?
Well, I was going to bring that up earlier
too. Yeah,
I was going to bring that up earlier too. Is how much are these people risking when they're going up in these private space flights?
I would say actually you do risk a hell of a lot more going up in this thing right here, going down under the water where you risk catastrophic implosion.
Probably
in something that's cobbled together and homemade versus going up into space. Because to be fair, going up into space is something where the theoretical framework has been done for a long, long time. It has been done many times over. It is always risk associated with it. But whoever goes into space, that is something that is tested up and down and through the gazoo so many times before they send someone up. And the humans that were lost in Challenger and in what's the other one? Columbia. Thank you. In both of those cases, you had warning signs in advance that something could go wrong here.
Yeah. Well, they were the Columbia was more of a hopeless situation because the mission started off fine, but when they were doing the examination before reentry, that's when they found out that they were missing a tile, but they had to make the risk because they had nowhere else to go. There's no way that one could get up to them.
Yeah. John Doe says, Chato, as a spy thriller, how does Secret Invasion, I think he means, compared to Sandbaggers? Thanks for the recommendation, by the way. Love Sandbaggers. Sorry I missed this earlier when we were talking about the Secret Invasion. I don't know if it came in after or not, but yeah.
Well, I mean, there are consequences to people's actions, and there's no comparison. Sandbaggers is, I think, especially when you get into later episodes, because it's kind of old and slow at the very beginning, but it's riveting with real consequences. There's just no consequences in Secret Invasion. That's really its biggest fault.
Well, let's wait and see with that.
Well, so far from one episode, it doesn't feel like.
I agree with.
They fail to stop an attack, but we don't know. Next episode is when we find out what will that actually result in.
Yeah, and when you've got this taciturn leader in Sandbaggers who's finished a dreadful marriage, and he vows never to fall in love again, and ends up falling in love with a new female sandbagger, and then she gets sent into a situation which requires a horrific decision. Boy, does it hit you like a ton of bricks, because you're rooting for Neil Burnside to finally have a decent life, because his life sucks as the head of the Sandbaggers. And finally he has something decent in his life. And wow, I mean, that's an amazing series of episodes. Here in Secret Invasion, not quite the same thing. I'm not invested in any individual's problem.
Yeah, no, that I agree with. There's nothing to be invested in. There's no character to get invested in here so far. Absolutely not.
But I'm glad you like Sandbaggers.
Yeah. Thank you, John Doe, for the super chat. And then we got Jesus Davila, who gifted a membership. Thank you so much, Jesus. Ian Carrolls, who says, now I need to make an Overwatch play of play of the game montage for the Titanic. Okay.
Ooh.
Your pal Russ says, I could get you to sign a waiver if that's all right, not to shoot you in the head, but obviously it's not.
Okay. I'll tell you, my wife on my 50th birthday got me a ride on a NASCAR track with a professional NASCAR driver to go 3 times around the track. And the waiver I signed was basically, if they have to scrape you off the tarmac, they owe you nothing, owe your family nothing. And then here's this helmet that they just sprayed with Lysol. Go have fun.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll protect you.
And I'm telling you, that was an experience I will never forget. Once the centrifugal force hit and I was smashed into the right side of the passenger side of the car, I could not unglue my head out of the meshing. It was just stuck there. Oh, man. And the guy was like literally 2 inches from the concrete wall and just nailing it around the track. And I'm looking at it because my head is right there. Wow. Anyways, yeah, the waiver was probably very similar to what they signed.
Yep.
Probably, yes.
Yeah. And then we have Stian Mondstad, who probably sent us some popcorn, I bet. Thank you for that.
Think it's a thumbs up.
Is it a thumbs up? All right, well, hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. Thank you, 6. Markson117B says, Andre, that warning of failure is why carbon fiber isn't used. Metal will bend and warp. The fibers hold until they break completely all at once. Yeah, that's what I was kind of trying to get my head around there, and thank you for that, Marksman. Horseradish Power says, when the Titanic broke and sank fast, there were survivors in air, I think it's pockets, in the back half, and they had 30 seconds of descent before the pressure imploded the pockets. The implosion would have been instant death, horrible end. Yeah, well, it's probably better than drowning, at least. But yeah,
I think
like pick your poison, I guess. At that point,
here's like the thing: they would be. I mean, yeah. Okay, Tom. Here's the thing: they drowned. It imploded the pockets. It didn't crush them. It's not like.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So what happened is that's when the air pockets were imploded, but that was just the air pockets. It wasn't a catastrophic implosion which killed them. No. That's when they had the joy of drowning.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and that was actually to me, one of the most horrific, big sinkings like that is what happened to the MS Estonia. Which happened in the Baltic Sea, I think in the late 90s or something. I remember 2 of those big ship sinkings, which were in my lifetime. That was Scandinavian Star. I remember that because 2 in my school were on it, because I was in school at the time. And then it was the MS Estonia. And what was so horrible with that thing is that the front of it, of the car deck, it had this really shitty design. So the front car deck just opened and it filled up with water during the storm. And the water was sloshing back and forth. And it shifted the center of the gravity. So the whole thing just tipped over in a second.
Mikey, this is why I fish from land.
This is why what?
This is why I fish from land.
Well, that's why we're on the island. We're just going to fish from the land.
That's right.
Then I'm going to drug you and then I'm going to take you out on a boat.
Oh, shit. What'd you say, 6?
We could throw some fish in Nike's pool.
I don't mind boats, but I'm not going anywhere near any huge mass of water that could consume me in seconds. Fuck.
I think that's a white people thing. You don't see Mexicans doing all kinds of crazy.
You said you don't swim.
I do swim, but I ain't gonna try to go lock myself in a tin can.
No, Mike. Remember Aquaman. Remember Black Panther. You Mexicans, you're blue now, and you live underwater.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. That's right. Sorry.
This clip was taken from Midnight's Edge in the Morning, which streams live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time on the Midnight's Edge main channel. There, you can send in your live questions and comments before clips and full stream replays are uploaded to Midnight's Edge live archives. We are also on Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey, and Facebook, so smash that like, help share, subscribe, and join us.